hour. So welcome. Hope everyone is having a great day so far. The sun is out, it's hot, which is exactly how I like it. I'm one of those, the hotter the better, so I'm loving this weather right now. Thanks for logging on and joining us for today's webinar on Leading During a Crisis with Dr. Clint Longenecker. So before we get started, it's a little housekeeping for those that haven't been on any of our webinars before. I think this is our maybe 11th or 12th. We've gotten into a really good groove with this. Emily is muting everyone as they enter. So if you are called upon later to talk, just to make sure that you unmute yourself, or if you happen to get unmuted, make sure to mute yourself so we don't have a lot of that background. We do have a large crowd, and sometimes if you hide your video, that helps with bandwidth. If you find things are freezing up, try doing that. We will utilize the chat box, the chat feature for questions. If you haven't been on a Zoom before, if you go ahead and hover towards the bottom of your screen, you'll see a chat icon. Go ahead and click on that and it should show up on your right-hand side. If you have a question, ask it through the chat. If it's, I will monitor that. If it's in depth, I may call on you and ask you to unmute yourself and ask the question, or if there's some back and forth. Or if you do think that you need to ask a more in-depth question and want me to call on you, there is a raise your hand feature in Zoom. Again, if you hover over the bottom, there's a participant icon. If you click on that, then you'll see your name. And if you hover up again on the right-hand side next to your name, there's a raise my hand, and you can click on that and we will watch for that as well. So in this Zoom session, we will have a breakout session. I don't know if anyone's ever participated in that before through Zoom. They're actually really fun. It's automated and everyone will be randomly assigned to a group. It's only 5 minutes and it's painless, I promise. It'll be fun. That'll happen early on, and Clint will talk a little more about that. So I think that's all our housekeeping logistics stuff. So let's go ahead and get started. Presenting today is Dr. Clint Longenecker, a man that probably needs no introduction, but I will try. He has published over 200 articles and papers in leading academic and professional journals. He is a frequent media source, and his research has been featured in a variety of media outlets, including the Wall Street Journal, MSNBC, and NPR, just to name a few. He's the author of multiple books. His newest one, The Successful Career Survival Guide, is a chronicle of best practices and key research findings designed to help readers improve their personal effectiveness and career trajectory. He is a consultant, an educator, an executive coach, a father, a husband, and a humanitarian. And he is a dear friend and supporter of the Center for the past 28 years. And for that, we're very grateful. And with that, I will pass it over to Clint to take it from here.
Thank you so very much, Angie. And I just want to say a shout out to Angie Jones and Kirsten and Emily for doing such a good job of keeping their Family Business Center members connected, if you would. So thanks for the opportunity to come and share some thoughts. So our original working title for this session was, leading in trying times, but I decided to change it a couple days ago to leadership lessons from our viral trial. So we're going to jump right in. Now, the transformation from regular presentations to Zoom and other formats for me has been fine, but it's different than I'm used to because I tend to be very engaged with the audience and participative and that sort of thing. So today, our goal here is to get you some information to hopefully help you think about some pretty important things. And as Chris Anderson so very nobly said at the start of this, the world has changed so significantly. And so here's the neat thing about being a human being. We have an infinite capacity to change along with that and to adapt and to make our worlds better, if you would, even though this is a very trying and challenging time. So let's get started. So I want to say, first off, greetings from the University of Toledo. And the University of Toledo is one of 27 comprehensive universities in the country. That means we have at least 7 professional schools. We actually have 9 at the university, and it's really been a great place for my 36-year career. I'm very appreciative for the opportunity. The business school continues to be ranked in one of the top 100 in America. And I'll tell you what, in trying economic times where money might be a little tighter than in the past, we are an educational value. So I want people to really, if you have family members, grandkids, children who are interested in getting a great education, I would put a big plug in for our institution. We are a top flight business school, and it's a privilege to have been part of it for 36 years. Now, look at this quote by our esteemed Albert Einstein, and you have to say this is pretty cool, especially, and I love the picture because if you're follically impaired, as am I, you look at that and you say, man, what a great head of hair. But he made this comment: intellectual growth should commence at birth and cease only at death. And what a powerful, powerful statement. So thank you for working on your intellectual growth today at a couple levels. So I want to thank you personally and on behalf of the Family Business Center for investing your time with us for 1 hour. So we're greatly appreciative. Time is a blessing, time is a gift, time is an investment. So I just want to say thank you so very much for the opportunity to invest an hour of your day on some pretty important stuff. So my career question has been, and probably always will be, how can people and how can leaders get better results more quickly for their organizations, regardless of the kind of enterprise that they might be operating in? So that's been the big focus in my career. And so we're gathered together today in a very different world than we were in just 3 months ago. But my goal here is to get us to think. Now, for those of you who do PowerPoint presentations, that's think with 350 font letters. And so at the end of the day, it's the maximum number of letters you can get across the page and still get an exclamation point in there. And the thinker is down below, but we want to think about a couple things and maybe some things that we might be able to reset in our personal life, in our professional life, and in the businesses that we function in. So I want you to really think long and hard about some of these important things. Now, we have some experience with recessions back in 2007, 2008, 2009. And I wanted to pick out just one graphic that I thought really illustrated kind of the damage that was done back in the 07 recession. And so we have this big crater that kicked in late 07 and carried out over into right to the edge of 2010. So the recession was pretty powerful. Now, in 2009, Sonny Aris, Dr. Sonny Aris and I, in the management department at UT, we did a study and we asked a group of almost 250 business leaders, hey, what lessons have you learned going through this experience? And number one is these folks said kind of across the board that leaders must take control of what they can control. And if they can't control it, they probably shouldn't worry about it so much, if you would. Number two, real change is all about speed, problem solving. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later in our session. Number three, business models can adapt quickly, although it can be painful, it can be tedious, it can be trying, that our business models can adjust and adjust accordingly with good thought and proper input. Number four, we have to think beyond the current storm. At some point in time, things will come back at a level. We have to anticipate, we have to look for opportunities amidst this current storm that we're going through. And I'll share a couple of those with you in a little bit. And then finally, people and time are ever so critical, that the way we can get out of just about any mess is to work our way out of it. But the catch here would be that we need people to do that. We need to appropriately apply our time. So interesting to note, this is the first pandemic of the information age. And so for the very first time since, a lot of us have been alive, this is a major pandemic. There have been issues back in 2010 with SARS and some other things. The Hong Kong flu back when in the 1960s popped up. So there's been a lot of this, but not at this scale, if you would. So this is a pretty important point. And I would just say this, we have been here before. Lots of interesting books about the pandemic of 1918 at the end of World War I. But look at this. In that pandemic that lasted 2018, 2019, 675,000 Americans died. Our population at that time was only 100 million people, so percentage-wise, it was a big number. Worldwide, deaths took place at some point between 20 million and 50 million people. They estimate that worldwide, and the worldwide population was 1.8 billion, and this is interesting to note, they believe that 100 million plus to 400 million plus people, they're not real sure, but these are the estimates, had this disease, if you would, had the influenza that caused all these problems. So in comparison, we're in a much better place, but we can work our way out of this collectively. So we're going to open up with a breakout session right now, as Angie mentioned. And so I'd like everybody to get out a piece of paper, if you would, and a pen, and I want you to write your response to this question. We're going to be in 4 or 5 person breakout rooms. We want you to think about 3 things you've learned about yourself during this pandemic in the past 3 months. And so right now you have 30 seconds to write. On your mark, get set, write, and then we'll go to breakouts. So Kirsten's getting us set up. And so Kirsten, in 30 seconds, why don't you go ahead and break us out? And here's the important point. When you're in your breakout room, I want everybody to do a quick introduction, tell everybody a little bit about yourself, and then share your lessons if you would. And be listening very carefully from what you're hearing from other people, okay? Terrific. So thanks. So Kirsten, whenever you're ready to break us out, please do so. Thank you. And we'll see you in 5-6 minutes, everybody. Thanks. Wrap up.
Yes, pulled everyone back in.
Okay, very good. All right, everybody, thank you for engaging in this discussion. And the question would be, what are some things you've learned about yourself during the past several months during this epidemic, this pandemic, if you would? So there's some really important things that people have shared. And if we had time, we could call on lots of people, but let me just call on a couple people in this order, if you wouldn't mind responding, please. Tom and Betsy Brady, if you are there, that'd be great. Followed by Mike Hart, and followed by Joe, let me think about this. Now, followed by Chris Anderson, okay? So if you wouldn't mind, real quick, jump right in and share some things you heard people say that were really important lessons right now. On your mark, get set, go. Mike Hardy out there.
Yep, I'm out here, Clint. I heard people appreciate working from home in a different way. I mentioned appreciation for teachers, not just sucking up to you, Clint, but teachers in general. I heard a lot of different appreciation for family and marriage, appreciation for work and people counting their blessings.
All right, excellent point. Thank you. Okay, Betsy Brady, Tom Brady.
Two things: the importance of family, mostly because you can't be as personally connected. And secondly, we've adapted to being able to live online, but nobody likes it as well.
Okay, yeah, very well said. Very well said. Betsy, are you there?
Betsy is not here.
Okay.
She's working.
Thank you. She's working. Okay, thank you. Chris Anderson.
The first thing is, one person, Sarah, just said that she learned that she always wondered, do I go toward the problem or do I wait for the problem? And she goes towards the problem.
All right. Wow. Sarah, very well said.
The second thing is an awareness, and I think this was consistent, is an awareness for downtime, which is related to family time.
Okay. Yeah. Very, very well said. And I think everybody would agree with those all across the board. So we've asked about 50 people the same question. I've kind of structured up their responses, and there's been an overarching spirit of thankfulness for having a paycheck and having a home and having a place to go and having people that you could reach out to. Family time is mentioned like never before. And people are having dinners together. They're spending more time with each other along the way. Board games are back. There's some good things. Appreciation for coworkers, appreciation for employers, appreciation for a paycheck, appreciation, if I may say, for toilet paper and paper towels and hand sanitizer. Time for reflection. So we're actually taking time to think like, boy, this is tough. How do we get out of here? Where am I at right now? Am I making my life count? Am I doing the things that I really believe are most important for my life mission? Why am I here? What difference can I make? Serious questions along the way, followed by there is frustration out there at lots of different levels, but I think people are learning how to cope. There is fear about loss of jobs, loss of paycheck, financial futures. And again, I think that people are thinking through things probably like never before. Loneliness and social isolation have been on the forefront of a lot of people that are really sheltering in alone. I have a lot of students right now who have sheltered in by themselves in their apartments for 2.5 months now. And in many cases, they are exceptionally lonely. But at the same time, people are being really innovative and people are being, I think creative like never before. And I think that people are spending time thinking about all the things that we just mentioned above. I do have one funny story. A friend of mine got a phone call. His kids are in school and is a 7th grader, and he gets a phone call from the teacher to check in. This is 3 or 4 weeks into the sheltering in. And they had this great conversation because he was in charge of homeschooling his son. And as they're getting ready to hang up the phone, the teacher says, do you have anything else for me? And Matt says to her, I just have one more request of you, that you would never lie to me again. And there was this pregnant pause, like, what do you mean, lie to me again? She goes, I really don't know what you're talking about. And then he said, well, when we had the parent-teacher conference back in January, you said that my son was a joy to teach, and that he was a sponge, and he was willing to listen to everything that you had to say. And he said, and I'm his dad, and I don't see it. So it was a very kind of fun, warm moment as a homeschooling dad, if you would. So with that backdrop, here's what we want to do. Let's jump in. We've got 32 minutes, some key leadership imperatives from our viral trial with the reset button in the lower left-hand corner. So an imperative is something that's considered to be of vital importance or significance, or as a noun, a truly essential or urgent thing. So imperatives tend to be urgent. And I believe if you're in a leadership position right now, or you're an individual contributor, it is really important to stop and think about the things that we're going to talk about. Now, imperative number one, get yourself refocused and reprioritized on what you can do to make the biggest difference. Everybody's got 24 hours in a day. We have a certain amount of energy that we all possess. What are we going to do where we can make the biggest difference? So we need to do some rethinking about this new environment that we're operating in. So we have to frame up our situation. Is it a mixture of homework and working from our homes or working back face to face? What are the challenges that we're facing right now? We need to align our mission. So what can I do in this environment to make the biggest difference? My mission is such and such, and write it out. How you're going to make a difference in the lives of the people that depend on you, both professionally and personally. We need to align our goals and metrics and hit that reset button, because in the current environment, many of the things that we were going after are no longer possible nor realistic. Conversely, in some cases, businesses are on fire right now and they're upgrading their goals because of some of the changes that have happened. But we need to make sure that we are focused appropriately. And this for me is the big one. Our daily habits and our routines become really, really important, and we have to focus on work priorities. Everything cannot be urgent, so we have to pick our fights accordingly. And the reason I put that target up there is we need to be focused. And all of our research all these years goes back to the simple fact that when people are focused, they'll figure out ways to get great things done, but it starts with focus. So if you're in charge of your organization, you're in charge of your work group, your customer service team, your project team, it's really important for you to refocus and reprioritize as you move forward in this process. All right, secondly, and I don't know about you, but many of us have sat through very lengthy discussions with the Boston Consulting Group, and we've listened in to webinars from banking institutions and lending institutions of every stripe. And here's what happens. They give you this lengthy discussion, and at the end of the discussion, somebody will say, but in the end, we really don't know what the environment's going to look like in 3 months. So we burn a tremendous amount of energy thinking 3 months, 6 months, a year out, and that's not bad thinking, but it is really important that we shorten our planning cycle and that we listen to all potential sources of information in the environments that we are operating in, whether they are customers, trade associations, our accountants, our bankers, our lending institutions. We need to be having our ear to the rail and our ear to the ground to hear what's coming and to be listening. So I'm encouraging people to shorten their planning cycle, 6-8 week rolling planning and budgeting cycle, with another eye on the future at the same time, if you would. And I was in Zimbabwe in 1998. And I was there and I'm doing a project at Harare General Hospital for a friend of mine. And we went on a safari one day, and the guide was there, and he said, it's really important as you walk the trails that you keep one eye where you put your foot and one eye on the horizon. Because where you might put your foot might hurt you, but if you don't see something coming on the horizon, that might hurt you as well. So seeking out any information that's going to help you clarify what's coming is critically important. And here's a terrific quote. And it's sometimes frequently, I think misinterpreted, but let's follow the advice of Dwight D. Eisenhower, our commander-in-chief of the D-Day invasions, which we just celebrated over the anniversary of that over the weekend. But he said, in preparing for battle, I have found that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable. So his point to be made here is the things that we learn about how we operate, our strengths, our weaknesses, the opportunities that are out there and the threats that we possess are going to come about if we do an effective job of planning. So the end result should not be having a fixed plan going into the new year, but it should be on the initiative and the energy that it's going to take to put together an accurate plan based on the best possible information that we possess. So we have to keep an eye in front of us. We have to also keep an eye on the horizon. And I think that's great advice from our guide, whose name was Harold, if you would. Okay, imperative number 3. And I am so impressed with so many companies doing this. A dear friend of mine, Dr. Carolyn Hendricks, son, who runs a consulting company in Washington, D.C., and I've been having lots of conversations. And and she does strategic planning, organizational things. She came back and she said she is so impressed with the amount of energy and care that people are putting into their workforces. And so I think we have to think about their physical well-being, absolutely, but we also need to think about their mental well-being. So we need to help our workforces develop physical distancing habits. From the beginning, we have mislabeled this whole idea about being separate. It is not, we don't want social distancing. We want social connectedness, but we want physical distancing. And that's an important distinction. You want the people in your workplace to be socially connected in a safe, physically distant fashion, if you would. So this is a gigantically important distinction, but we want people to be separate, but we have to help them develop habits. In some cases, we have to remind people multiple times. We have to coach people. We have to make sure that people are playing by the rules laid down by the government and laid down by our own organizational HR departments and the like. We need to listen and engage our workforce like never before. And I'm encouraging companies that I work with to have listening sessions with their people. How are you feeling? What are we doing right? What do we need to be doing better on a regular basis to engage that workforce and listen to them? And I think right now with the social unrest associated with the George Floyd death, I think it's really easy. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody's got ideas. Everybody's got sources of information. But I really think it's 2 important things. We need to be listening to what's going on around us like never before, both personally and professionally. We also need to make sure that we are listening to a balance of voices. We need to hear what the people around us have to say and what they have to think, and that we're really good active listeners. And I think that that really pertains to our workforce as well. So we need to over-communicate around important information with our workforces. So what information do they want and do they need about our operation and about our future so that they can get their work done? And we found in our research, and this is kind of an interesting point, that the people always say, oh, we're not good communicators in our companies, or our communications are breaking down. There's really and truthfully only 3 kinds of communication, 3 kinds of information. Number 1, does the person have the information that they need to perform their job? So we've got to make sure that people have the information to perform their job. Number 2, they really have a sense of where the department, where the work group, where the organization is going and how things are on an overall basis. So I don't have to burn time asking people. And number 3, and this ties back to our second point, do people in your organization have a voice? Do they have a voice? So if they have an idea to improve, an issue to deal with, a problem to be solved, do they have somebody that they can go forward to and talk to? Have they been empowered to share that vision, that thought, that idea with the people around them? So we can't underscore the importance of communication in this environment. Next up is coaching and providing ongoing feedback to your workforce, especially in helping them develop new habits and new approaches to doing things in the workplace. So there's no substitute for feedback. I would talk to my leaders in your organization and ask them what they believe your feedback and coaching model should look like, and especially if we're operating with people at home and in a more virtual environment. And then finally, we need to seek employee ownership over the ideas that we're trying to move forward, whether it is safety, whether it's new processes, whether it is a new twist of our enterprise. When employees own ideas, they treat them very differently than if this is a mandate. So I would encourage you, if you want something to really hit and hit quick, give a group of employees the opportunity to take the idea, to disassemble, reassemble, and then roll it out. We're doing that very thing right now with the University of Toledo football team. Every Monday we meet and we talk, by the way, the University of Toledo football team, 3.4 GPA. University of Toledo men's basketball team, 3.3, almost 3.4 GPA. Women's basketball team, 3.47. So, boy, I'll tell you what a powerful, powerful thing. But we're meeting with the football team to talk about what the ideals and the principles and the winning ways look like going into the new season. We want the team members. This doesn't come from the coaches. This is coming from the senior leadership group. And at the end of the day, the players will own the process that is being laid out. And that ownership is paramount. Okay. Number 4, and I wish I could see all of your faces simultaneously. I want to be careful here because I don't want to be a professor who's frequently described as someone who talks in someone else's sleep. So I want to make sure that we're all in the game here. So let's look at imperative number 4. Get people refocused and reprioritized on their new reality and the key results that we need from them. So in a number of our previous studies, we have found that if you take a boss and you ask him or her to describe, if you would, what their employee's job entails, they'll make a list and we have it in place. And then we ask the employee, or you and me in this case, to do the same. What we have found on average, the overlap is about 57% overlap. And right now, with resources stretched and a new normal emerging here, we've got to get that number into the 90s. We've got to make sure that we are on the exact same page with our employees and that they're on the exact same page with us. And if we do that one thing really, really well, our performance and our productivity will go up and it'll be a positive thing. So we need to help our employees clarify key job functions and priorities. Equally important, what shouldn't they be doing? What is no longer value added in this new normal? And this is a gigantically important point. We have to help them stay focused on the results that we are trying to get at as an organization and that they can move the needle on. So this is a critically, again, another really important point. We have to help our people get on the same page with us. So right now, I will take a pause. We're halfway through our 8 imperatives, and I will ask Kirsten. Kirsten, have you received any questions or has anything popped up thus far?
I see a question. Clint, how do you help them stay focused in this virtual environment when things aren't the typical day?
Okay, so if they're working at home, I think it's really important to have planning sessions with people to help them articulate and formulate on a daily basis what they want to get done. And it really might be helpful if we say to them, you know, this would really help us if you wouldn't mind sending me your work list of the things that you're working on today and how I might be able to help you this day. So we're not going to ask people to write out, you know, every part of their day, but we do know that it's really important for people working out of their homes to have schedules and to have goals. And I think it's a great idea, and especially if it's a key personnel. If it's a salesperson, hey, could we have a 5-minute debrief? And what if you spent the last half an hour of each day having a 5-minute check-in with each of your people, and you do this every other day, every third day, or once a week to say, how's it going? What are you working on? How can I help you? Any questions for me along the way? What are you most happy about from this week's activity? What do you need to be doing maybe differently next week? And I'm going to give you 3 questions at the end of our discussion today that we should be asking ourselves and asking the people that work with us and for us on a daily basis, if you would. So thanks for the question. Angie, any other questions?
Yep, one more. When people are used to planning quarterly and annually, do you have any tips on how they can readjust to plan in that 6 to 8 week period?
Yeah, I think that what has to happen is you need to sit down and create your own model, but get the input of your key people. So what's interesting is some people, even though you might have quarterly planning sessions or biannual planning sessions, there's people within your leadership team that do it monthly anyways. That there's people embedded in there. So I think to have a discussion about what your new planning horizons look like. I've heard the word a gazillion times, scenario building. We've all heard that of late, okay? So at the end of the day, I have a board meeting tomorrow, and we have looked at a normal, what it would be normally, our planning scenarios for the future. what it looks like in a worst case scenario, what it looks like in a current realistic scenario, and then what our wish list might look like. So we're asking similar questions, but we're putting together, instead of good and bad, we're putting together more variance in our planning model. But at the end of the day, I'd have a conversation with the people on your leadership team to formulate what your new planning model and budgeting model should look like, at least for the next 6 months. And I think that the question is well founded, but somebody on your leadership team has a strong opinion about this right now that may be beneficial to help everybody get through it, if that makes sense. So I hope that answers the question. So right now we have 16 minutes to go, so we're going to jump right in and we'll continue the process. Now, imperative number 5, look for opportunities amidst the gloom to make bold moves. And it's somewhat counterintuitive right now because, and if you look at this whole issue of being bold and moving quickly and doing these things, there's a lot going on there. But we need to make personnel moves. I walked a couple different leaders, senior leaders in companies that had people that they believe were critical to the organization, but were also a cancer to the organization. And they basically took this time as say, why are we doing this anymore? This person should no longer be here. They are a cancer. They don't support our cultural views. And they've had every opportunity to turn it around. So in this particular case, this person is going to remove themselves from the organization by their behavior. And so I'm encouraging people, this may be an opportunistic time, and we'll come back to that in a second. I think at the same time, companies are talking about, we're going to need 10% fewer workers for the next few months. Here's my question for you. What criteria, if you're in charge and this is your organization, your department, your work group, what criteria are you using to decide who goes and who stays? So, and what I've been hearing from the people I'm working with, they're saying, I'm keeping people who are utility players. I'm keeping people who are always learning. I'm keeping people who lead and lead effectively and know how to build a team. I am keeping people who are great communicators and people who know how to develop their workforce. And here's the wild card. And I'm keeping people that have a great attitude, that don't whine, complain, gossip, backbite, and the like. So at the end of this discussion, people are identifying criteria, and appropriately so, for who should go and who should stay. So this is one that's tough, but a couple of organizations that I'm affiliated with have closed questionable or marginal organizational locations, a warehouse, a retail outlet, a distribution point. So there's discussions along that. At the same time, starting a new product line. There's an awesome company in Toledo called Designetics. They're actually a member of the Family Business Center. Their CEO is Sidney Williams, a remarkable leader. But during this pandemic, they decided to go into the business of making plexiglass panels. And so they went out, ordered as much plexiglass as they could back in February. They have an awesome full service line, locally produced in Holland, Ohio, of all these great products. This is in the middle of trying to hang on to their core business. So I think if you have an opportunity to look beyond the gloom, it's a really good thing because there might be some opportunities or parallel businesses that you might engage in. Another client said, look, we are too firmly rooted in this one marketplace. We've got to get out. We've got to get plugged into other arenas. They're using this as an opportunity to go look for additional business in a new product line. Opening a new facility that may or may not, maybe it was half open or maybe a decision was made prior to that we can't afford to open it. I would encourage you, if business is there, to put your paper and pencil to it and do the math on it, because maybe there is an opportunity along the way. And then finally, investing in new technology. We probably need to hit a reset button on some of our technology, but aren't you encouraged how quickly, as Tom Brady said, people have adapted to this new normal with the use of technology? So I want to encourage you to take time to think and not just work in your business, but it's popular to say work on your business, but work on your business with a mindset to look around and see what's going on out there. I would submit to you that some of your competitors may be going away. There is an opportunity for market share, and there's an opportunity in a couple directions here that we might move if we are bold enough to do so. Imperative number 6, and I think this is gigantically important as part of your overall scheme for taking your business to the next level coming out of this. Let's get our leadership team on the same page. Your leaders must lead at a new level. And you know what I am finding in my travels right now, and especially in the military, that people are focused on making sure that their leaders are practicing the fundamentals like never before, clarifying expectations, communicating effectively, coaching, building an appropriate team, helping their people be equipped with new skill sets. And this is a gigantically, I know I've used the word a lot today, gigantically, it's my word of the month, but it's a really important thing that we really think through. Our leaders have to have the skill set, the competency, and the character to do the right thing. And once you can get a senior group of leaders focused on results, doing the right things, that will spill down to your middle management, and that'll spill down to your frontline supervisors. But I would just say this though, what are you doing to drive home the necessity of leadership development in this rapidly changing environment that we are operating in? Second up, develop your leadership model for your virtual workforce. Get your folks in a room, because right now we're probably handling it just like we normally would our folks, but they have different needs. They have different expectations and concerns. Why don't we put together a leadership group within our company to identify what a leadership model looks like for the virtual workforce? And back in the day, we called it telecommuting. That's how old I am. But what's interesting is companies had a hard time adjusting to telecommuting. And there's a little bit of research out there. Some of it's not great, but if at the end of the day, we really need to think about what we could do to best support, motivate, encourage, and communicate with our workers who are working out of their home. And I could ask the question right now, for those of you who are working out of your home, how many people have shoes on right now? I mean, I think we're more productive when we're in slippers or flip-flops, if you would. So at the end of the day, we need to understand those issues. Finally, the leadership team must function as a unit. And so I think there's no time like team building with senior leaders and middle management leadership team than in a crisis. Why? Because everybody needs to buck each other up and to support each other as we move forward. And my last comment, and this is hard to say, but it's got to be said, bad and ineffective and toxic leaders must go. In many cases, we have tolerated people who have maybe they're a good individual contributor, but they're not a good leader. This is a very good time to give people the option to take their leadership game up a notch or two to get right and to do things the right way, or potentially self-select themselves out of their organization. And I think right now, when we have people on our staffs that don't represent our values, our cultural discipline and principles, if they don't represent and bring out the best in their people, it may be a time for a serious conversation to talk about either change or go. And as the old adage goes, in these types of scenarios, you have to either change the person or change the person. Probably says it all. Number 7, imperative number 7, use our crisis as an opportunity, and this is important, to learn to solve problems and make changes fast. So we learned in 2007, 2008, 2009 that companies are really capable of making changes much more rapidly than they give themselves credit for. So we got to think about this. If we're going to make changes, let's get really close to our customers to hear what they need from us that they might not be getting. And let's make phone calls strategically to the right people. Let's get really close to our employees to see what they might share about improving a process, refining something, making money, cutting costs, and the like. Because people have ideas if we are willing to listen along the way, as we said earlier. Frame changes as problems to be solved quickly. And you know what's interesting? We hear this nomenclature, this said all the time. People hate change. And yet, most people make changes all of the time. What we need to really say is, people hate to make some changes that they don't like. Because if we like the change, more often than not, people will jump in and they'll run with it very quickly. But if they don't like the change, they'll say, I hate change. And don't listen to people that say that. It's not true. We are change machines. We're seeing it all around us if we're looking, but here's the catch. When you have to make a change in your organization, instead of calling it a change per se, frame it as a problem to be solved. People don't usually push back against solving a problem, and especially if you say this, right now we're in a tough spot. We have to reduce our cycle time for these services by 5% to remain competitive. And this is really tough. If we don't, we're going to lose business, and we don't want to lose business. So could you help us as a team solve this problem? Now, if I made the comment, we want to fix this and we're going to make a change around customer service, people right now are thinking in the back of their heads, oh my gosh, layoffs, cutbacks, something. Frame your changes to be made as problems to be solved, because most people solve problems pretty effectively. And then finally, think about change. And I know we have a lot of football fans out there. I would go back and just say, think about change as a 2-minute drill from American football. If you think about a change as we're behind on the scoreboard, people don't like to lose. We got to have the right players on the field. People like to win. We need to have a playbook that gets things done pretty quickly to make that change. We're going to execute and measure performance and keep track, and we're going to celebrate success. So all of those things, and we have found if we think about change as a 2-minute drill in football, can have a powerful effect to help us get at some of these other things. Now, I want everybody to roll their head to the right 3 times and go back the other way 3 times, and then up and down with your chin 3 times, just to keep the blood flowing, because we are down to 7 minutes. So finally, imperative number 8, and I can't tell you this powerfully enough. You must, you have to, you need to take care of yourself like never before. And so I would encourage everybody here to look at attitudinally where you're at. Start each day with gratitude. And I think there's been more gratitude shared with me from the people around me than maybe ever before in my life, because people are not taking things for granted. I want to encourage you to think about each day, what are 3 blessings in your life that you are ever so thankful for? Every day, no matter how you feel when you get up, write them down, keep a book, keep a log book about where you're at. 3 things you're thankful for each and every day. When you go to work, if you're physically operating in an environment, you need to set the example for physical distancing, because 1, people are looking at you, and number 2, and by the way, if your workforce is wearing a mask, wear a mask. We need to demonstrate and lead by example in this regard. So physical distancing is something that we need to engage in to protect ourselves from as well. Get sufficient sleep. To the degree that that is humanly possible, it is so utterly important, because research shows unequivocally that our sleep levels have a profound effect on our attitude and our outlook and what we see when we look at the world each day. Prioritize and get regular exercise. And I live in South Toledo over by Swan Creek Park. I have been utterly amazed, encouraged, and impressed with how many people are out there walking. And again, when they're walking past each other, they take these wide swings to avoid people. But it is great to see people getting exercise right now. And I just had my 1-year checkup from my open heart surgery on May 2nd of 2019. I had what they call a bicuspid aortic valve, a birth defect that I'd had since birth that they found when I was 59. And last spring, I went to Cleveland Clinic and they had to repair it, a potential aneurysm there. And when I went to see the doctor, he just said, you know what, Clint, you're coming out of this thing really well. And I think a big part of it's because you get exercise. So I can't underscore the importance of really taking a holistic approach to these things. Let's look at our diet as well. And I think some cases it's easier to eat. And again, we all have our opinions on all these things. I'm not trying to tell anybody. I am a whip. I am a work in progress, and I continue to learn every single day, but I'm just sharing some things with you that have really been front and center in a lot of work and a lot of research lately. And then this is a big one, and I think this is a game changer for lots of us. Take time daily to think and to reflect on where your life is at and what you want to do. And we have a process. Actually, it's a new book I'm working on right now, and it's called STOP. And so the acronym STOP stands for on a daily and then on a strategic basis, taking the time to sit and be still, think about what you want to do to make a difference and act with greater intentionality. Then I want to make sure that I basically optimize the day with good decision-making about what I'm going to do. And then I want to perform. I do those things before I start my day. And I really think that taking time to think about what you're going to do each day to act with greater intentionality is a game changer in the lives of most of us. You know what I've learned in my many years of working with executives and executive coaching? I have learned that randomness is the enemy of excellence. So if we don't map our day, if we don't take control of what we can take control of, know that somebody else will, and there's a very good chance that your day will turn random. And just remember, randomness breeds frustration. Randomness takes away intentionality. Randomness is the enemy of excellence. So at the end of the day, let's close with the great words from Socrates. He said, the ongoing challenges of life mandates that we apply all our wisdom to daily situations, lest we fall prey to our own folly. And folly is just another word for foolishness. So I think it's really important that we can agree with Socrates that the challenges of life require us to use wisdom to make the best of each and every day. But you won't remember what Socrates said. I think you might remember, and some of you know I always use this. John Wayne said, life is tough, but it is tougher if you're stupid. An ignorant person doesn't know what to do. So hopefully they can read, go to class, talk to a friend, get up to speed to get answers. A person who is sometimes stupid, like I stand before you as an exhibit A in that regard, I know what I should do, but for whatever reason, I don't do it. That means I'm probably doing stupid stuff. And John Wayne's wisdom here is pretty profound. I'm going to take my life and make it more difficult, which probably isn't a good thing. So we're operating in a COVID-19 environment. We are challenged at many, many levels. We need to be wise. And you know what wise people do? They know the right thing to do. They prepare themselves to do the right thing, and they go ahead and they do it. And I had a coaching session with a dear friend of mine by the name of Admiral Steve Barnett, and he is in charge of the Northwest Command of the United States Navy. And we were having this big discussion, and he made this comment, and he said, you know, sometimes if you're not paying attention, it's easy to do stupid stuff. Now, this guy is like, he's a Top Gun fighter pilot. He's Navy trained. He's a remarkable guy. And we had this lengthy discussion. He happens to be African-American. We had this lengthy discussion about how important it is for him as the leader of the organization to do the right thing in every situation, because everybody's looking at him to do the right thing. And he made this comment to me, unsolicited. He said, I really need to be wise in everything that I do. And you know, Admiral Barnett, thank you for saying that, because you really touched my heart in doing so. So everybody on the call today has got 24 hours a day, each and every day, and we want to make sure that we make that time count, because lots of people are counting on us. And I'll just end up with these really important questions. To take my success and my effectiveness to the next level as a leader and professional, what must I? Hey, folks, you're successful. You're doing great stuff. You're making a difference. You're changing your world. So you need to keep doing the things that are allowing that to happen. But the last two questions might be a little more difficult for all of us. Here's the question. What do I need to stop doing that's damaging my credibility with my workforce, or maybe hurting my ability to improve my organization, or limiting my ability to take my company to the next level? What do I need to stop doing? And then finally, what do I need to think about doing, and what do I need to start doing on a regular and consistent basis? So here's a homework assignment. What if for the next month, every Friday, you sat down and had a personal self-assessment with yourself around these three questions? This week, what did I do that I need to keep doing that really made a difference? What did I do this week that I probably shouldn't have done, or was counterproductive, or wasted my time or the time of someone else? So I want to stop doing it next week. What do I need to start doing so I can have the biggest possible impact on the people that are depending on me? So I'll just end with Thoreau, and I thought I'd end with a very wise and noble guy. And according to my watch, I had exactly 15 seconds. This time, like all time, is a great time if we know but what to do with it. And so I think when Thoreau said that, it is such a powerful message. And here's one more message. So this little kid is going down the slide, and I'm just predicting, maybe I'm wrong, that she wasn't real big on going down the slide. So please make note, she has an adult or a more mature person taking the ride with her to help her. Maybe, and I had to do this with my kids, you probably did too, talk your kids onto the roller coaster or the merry-go-round of the slide. So we have a responsibility to each other to look after each other and to help each other and to encourage each other. So maybe in some situations, you're the kid, but you got to bring somebody alongside to help you go down that big challenge that you're trying to take on right now. And conversely, maybe sometimes you are the adult helping another person take the ride down that slide, if you would. So we've got to, and we've learned through this epidemic, we've got to look after each other. So I'll stop right there. I'll say thank you so much for the gift of your time. To give me an hour of your life is really a very touching thing for me. I want to say thanks to the Family Business Center for the opportunity to share a couple thoughts today. I really want to say thanks to the College of Business. We are going places, and I'll tell you what, right now, the College of Business is just a great place. It's been a great place to work for all these years, and I'm very appreciative for the opportunity to do so. So I'll stop there, and Angie, I'll go back to you, and God bless you good.
Yeah, thank you so much, Clint. That was wonderful. And you are packed with a lot of great information. And I know if you can see the chat, there's lots of thank yous and appreciations in there to you. If you have a few minutes, one quick question. Someone asked if you'd be willing to comment on the landscape of higher education and how this pandemic might change that in the future.
Yeah, I think you're seeing higher education plan operationally like never before. So people putting together scenarios for face-to-face, a blend of face-to-face and virtual classroom, and then completely classroom. I think it'll be really interesting. Part of it is because the students that are going to be working, that we'll be working with, may not be as sensitive or aware to the issue of the COVID spread as others might be. So I think there's going to have to be some real habit making and some habit breaking along the way. And I want to share, here's a couple things, and I've been asked a lot, like, Clint, what are you reading these days? So I'm reading a couple of different books. I'm reading a book called Rethinking Poverty, which is it's written by a college professor who has basically looked at the analytics of poverty, and it's been very, very informative. This is a book that just came out. It's called Rethinking Success by Douglas Halliday, and it's a really, I think, a very powerful read. We have Atomic Habits. I don't know how many people have heard of Atomic Habits by James Clear. I did a program for the Indians a while back, and he was one of their speakers. Somebody said, Clint, have you read this book? And I said, I have not. And it is a terrific book about how to reprogram yourself around really important behaviors and habits. And then I was going to, oh, never mind. Anyways, I was going to talk about the Successful Career Survival Guide, but it sounds self-serving, so I won't. But there's lots of stuff going on out there, and there's great information all around. And I would share with everybody, go back to fundamentals, blocking and tackling, hitting and fielding. If it's baseball, pick your word picture, if you would. So I spoke to Neil Newcomb, who was the general manager, a former MBA student and a graduate of the University of Toledo, this morning about what's going on at the Walleye. And you know what they're doing? They're really using this as an opportunity to kind of take a look at everything they do, to put together various scenarios, just like we're doing in higher education. And they're doing scenario planning like never before. So I just think it's pretty remarkable that it's forcing all of us to think ahead and yet to be utterly more thankful for the present, if you would. Long-winded answer, sorry.
No, that's wonderful. So thank you again, Clint. Again, you'll have to read all the chat. Wonderful comments coming in there. Again, very appreciative. I like Ed's comment with people like Clint in our UT Family Business Center. We will do better in Toledo. So thank you, Ed. 100% agree.
Well, thanks. If we can help anybody with anything, don't hesitate to reach out. We have plans and programs and people to just to help people make the leap to the next level. And it's really been kind of fun to see some of the great success stories that are coming out of what's happening right now, that people have been able to maintain their businesses and grow their businesses and work their way through some very, very difficult times. So if you're alone out there, I want to encourage you to get plugged into your affinity group. Stay close to those people because they have lots of answers and lots of encouragement. And if you're getting discouraged, don't hesitate to reach out to those people in your inner circle. It's really important to be authentic and honest with each other in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, if you are not an affinity group and a member of the center and you want to be, reach out to us. We'll get you in one. As with all of our webinars, we did record this and Emily will put it up on our YouTube site later today. So we will send the link out. Please feel free to go back, revisit, share it. Again, it was packed with great information. Share it with someone you think could benefit from it. Kirsten will post links to all of our social media in the chat. we would appreciate if you would like us on Facebook, LinkedIn, we're on Pinterest. I think we're on Pinterest now too. We're on all of them. So feel free to follow us there and engage in further conversation, all of this. So we have our next webinar next Tuesday. We will send out an invitation and it's on our website. Skylight Financial Group, one of our center sponsors, is going to talk about estate planning and maybe some creative ways to use insurance to help with that. So that'll be next Tuesday and it'll be on our website if you want to register for that. So thank you everyone for attending.
Thanks. Go Rockets, everybody. And Roger Bostoff, I love the VG logo in the background, brother. Way to represent your institution. Thank you.
Thanks, Clint.
Take care. Take care, everybody. God bless you. Good.
Thank you.
Bye,
Adios.
everyone.
Thank you.